this thing right here.
And welcome to the Three Guys podcast. Tonight we have a special guest. We have C.J. Fitzwater with us tonight. C.J., thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
C.J., I'm going to do your intro, and then when I get you started on talking about this I know it's a dear subject for you, and I want to hear more about it because I think this has to do with health these days, and life being short. So, but with that being said, so you're C.J. Fitzwater. You're a VP of America's Auto Auction, Boston. You're a community servant and a heart transplant recipient. C.J., thank you for coming on and playing Pick One. So, C.J., I think everyone understood you. You grew up in Ohio, and you were back and forth. We did get that out there. So, if you want to tell about yourself, how you got started in the car business, and then we can lead up to the day that you actually had to find out that you needed a heart transplant, which that I know when I talk to you about is very dear to your heart, literally.
Well, so I got in the auction business purely by accident. I needed a job, and the auction needed somebody that would clean cars, and I took the job, started cleaning cars when I was 18 years old, and I just continued in the business and did everything my boss asked me to do and helped build a very successful auction that I'm still at today. It's at one time it was the largest independent auction in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. We're not so much independent now because of because we connected with a group of auctions and partnered with, so we're not considered independent anymore. But very fun, very interesting business. I love it. I've always loved it. The first day I was on the job, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I hope that I can continue to do this the rest of my life. It was, it's fun, a lot of energy. I negotiate for a living. It's a really cool. It's really cool to do. So that was your first question.
Yeah. So I know when I spoke to you last, well, not last, but when I spoke to you, we met, I know, during COVID, and you recently came on one of our boards, and I've had multiple discussions with you, which I find interesting. But you mentioned, how you found out, it's right around COVID that you actually had to go into the hospital. Am I correct? That
so March. So February 2020, I was visiting a Christmas Story house that was not open for business. And then a month later in March 11th, I was walking up a set of stairs and I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, man, I think I got COVID, the whole COVID scare is going around. And I said to my boss, hey man, listen, I need to go to the hospital, just get a check. I drove up to Manchester, New Hampshire. It's where my doctors are. I go in, they have this whole big tent thing set up. It was real crazy back then. It was like the whole outbreak element still. Everybody had the full suits on, and it was very, COVID, the whole COVID thing was in its infancy, and so I roll up, I take a test. They say, hey, we're going to have you go in here. We're going to do we want to do some blood work on you because you're not feeling well. And I said, okay. So I went into this other section of the, quarantine area, and they pulled some blood from me. I'm in there waiting. I know that it's going to be a week or so before the COVID test comes back anyway. So I'm like, you know what, forget this. I'm going to leave. They got my blood. If there's an issue, they'll call me. So I'm driving home, and they call me up and say, hey man, you had a heart attack. And I said, no, you got to be crazy. I didn't have no heart attack. So they're like, no, you had a heart attack. So they said, you need to come back. So I come back. They stick me in this, clear room for 10 days till my COVID test came back, which came back negative, and did a bunch of they couldn't really do anything because no one wanted to touch anybody that was potentially a COVID patient at the time. And after 10 days, they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to give you an echocardiogram, which is a pretty simple thing, but they couldn't do that until I came back negative. Go in, have an echo. They said, we don't know, we don't see anything. You seem like you're okay. I'm like, okay. Talked to my doctor. My doctor said, we think we want to put a pacemaker defibrillator in you. We think that's going to fix you, but we can't do it right now because we're not doing anything because of COVID. But meantime, I'm sick. Like I can't breathe. I can't walk. I'm walking with a cane. I mean, I'm barely functioning. I couldn't drive for 10 miles without having to stop and take a nap. I couldn't do anything. And these doctors are just telling me, don't eat Chinese food, don't do this, and basically I went in May, which was 2 months post. I'm in and out of the hospital just from being sick. In May of, they did the pacemaker in New Hampshire, and I come out and I'm still miserable. And my doctor says, hey, listen, there's nothing we can do. Like, we're going to just put you on some water pills and just keep the water off of you. But basically, this is your life, and I said, geez. So I had a good friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Bill Curry, who's one of the owners of Lion Wall Auto Group, who said to me, listen, I'm going to get you connected with Tufts. At the time, hospitals in Boston were taking new patients, but he goes, I'm going to get you connected with Tufts. He snuck me into Tufts in May, and I went in and they said, you got a serious problem. We need to do some further tests. At that point, I'm scared. I know that I'm in a bad place. Check out of the hospital, go to Seabrook Town Hall, get my marriage license so my wife can see me in the hospital. We weren't married at the time.
That makes sense.
My marriage license, go back to Tufts, check into Tufts. Tufts says to me, they said, we're going to put you under, we're going to do a test. And when you wake up, you might have some stuff going on. So they put me under. Needless to say, I woke up. I'm on life support, basically. Wow. And this is June of 2020. So I'm on life support. They said, listen, you need a heart transplant. There ain't nothing you're going to be able to do. So I said, all right, fine. I'm in the ICU. I got married in the ICU to my wife. We did her, vows and all that stuff. So get married. I'm just waiting, honestly. And I don't want to take up too much time, but
no, CJ, this is your forum.
Yeah. So talk about. We're on. So, you're in there for a couple of months and you're struggling and you're struggling and, you go to the darkest places that you can imagine in life. I mean, you cry out for death. You're just in complete misery. You can't do anything in life. You're in a real tough place. But fortunately for me, I was younger, I was healthier. I had a history of good habits. I didn't smoke or drink, and I had a great support system of people locally and my family. And we, I'll just say it like this, I was struggling and I was praying and I just wanted life. And I just had so many people that were praying and wanted life for me. And at the same time, 100 miles away, there was a young man who was struggling with life too, but struggling with life in a much different way. He was struggling with some mental health issues, and he decided that he didn't want to live, and I wanted to live so bad. And, he decided that he was going to end his life, but by ending his life, he saved mine. His heart got transplanted into me in July of 2020. and he saved 5 other people that same day, July 13th of 2020. And, this kid signed up to be an organ donor when he was 16 years old. And his family had to make such a difficult decision on taking him off of life support. And there's only a limited amount of time that you have in between the time that the brain dies and the time that those organs become non-usable. And his parents, and I can only imagine the struggle, his parents had to make that decision, and they made that decision in time to save my life. And that's something that is pretty heavy for you to think about, is somebody that that had gone through that. I talked to the father. We connected a few months later in October of 2020 by letter, and we corresponded with each other. And the father said to me, CJ, Dominic was my best friend, and I talked to him every day. And he says, "Do you mind if I call you?" And I said, "You call me every day." And we talk just about every day. Good family. It took a while before I could talk to the mother. It took her a year to come around, and in July, the anniversary of her son's death, we finally connected. And the deep sorrow that this lady and she's our age, she's 46 years old, the deep sorrow that she holds on to from the loss of her son is just amazing. I mean, I just can't imagine the pain. But great people, have built a great relationship with them. I love them. And honestly, the really cool thing about it is I had the opportunity post-transplant to take a year off from work. And, I've been working since I was, had a paper route at 14 years old. And that gave me the opportunity to really get involved in the community, and everything that I do, I try to do in remembrance of who Dominic was, because Dominic, he saved my life. His heart's pumping right here in my chest right now. We do a couple of walks every year. Salisbury has a local event, Tortoise in the Hare, and I always have a team in memory of Dominic, because I can walk that 5K or run that 5K, and because of who Dominic was, so, and we both you're active in the SBBA, and the SBBA does a great every year where they have beach cleanups, and I'm there at every one of them, and I'm wearing my Donate Life shirt, just to bring recognition to, what Donate Life stands for. And that's registering people to be organ donors. And, it's extremely important, for people to be aware of just how powerful it is to be able to continue your legacy through somebody else. And, and when I always create a team, I always call it Dominics Legacy, because I have the opportunity to extend his legacy and his life through my heart. And I tell everybody that I can about it. But that's basically my heart transplant story.
So CJ, you were able to get a heart transplant relatively quick, considering during COVID. Did you think at that period of time that you were going to be in that hospital for a long period of time, or how were you very fortunate that, during, you're talking about during a pandemic, now you're jumping in. Did they go by like who needs it the most at the time, or, how long would you have been able to go on without the heart transplant?
There's a lot of questions in there.
I know.
I'll answer them as I can dissect them. So question one is a real good question. My only experience of really knowing somebody that needed a heart transplant was this DJ from New Hampshire. His name, and he was originally from Saugus, but he was on Rock 101, and his name was Roadkill. Was it Roadkill? No, Andy Blacksmith was his name. And I remember, like, he was always on the radio, and he was talking about how he needed a heart transplant, and he was going through the thing, and he was hoping for, a donor. And, unlike other organs, in order for you to get a heart transplant, somebody has to unfortunately die. It's unlike a kidney or a liver where you can have a live donor. And Andy Blacksmith ended up dying in 2017, waiting on a heart transplant. And the whole time I'm in the hospital, all I'm thinking is, man, they couldn't find this DJ a heart. Like, there's no way they're going to find, some kid from Salisbury a heart. They couldn't find this DJ a heart. So I was so scared and so nervous. And, you're at that place in your life where I find it a blessing. I eliminated every skeleton in my closet. I made up with everybody. I mean, with my, with family that I had issues with. I made sure that my children all knew that I apologize for anything that I ever did bad. They apologized. We cried, and my children were in that hospital every day with me, and we were just going through things to make sure that nothing was left unsaid. So for me, man, and I got out, like, with my parents, with my kids, there was nothing. Even my ex-wife, I mean, we had a beautiful, teary conversation about, what we had gone through, and we weren't really close, because, we went through a divorce. But so you get all of that stuff out. And I was at peace with the fact that I was going to die. I mean, really at peace. Like, this is it. I'll go. So I wasn't a smoker, and I wasn't a drinker, and I never did drugs. And I had a tremendous support system. I had a whole, they had like this GoFundMe, and they had just like all these people around that were just so supportive of me. My job was supportive of me. I think the thing that they look at the most is, and there's a God committee that makes the determination on who's going to get a heart. The things that they look at are.
Wait, CJ, what's that committee called again?
Well, I call it the God committee.
Oh, okay. I like.
And it really, that's really what they are. But what it is it's a team of, you have a cardiologist, you have a psychiatrist, you have a dietitian. There's all kinds of, you have a communicable disease person in there. And what they all do is they evaluate you constantly when you're listed. And they are the ones that make the determination when a heart becomes available, who's going to get that heart. And I was extremely sick. I was on life support. I had this machine pumping my heart. So it would take a group of 3 people to get me up to walk each day. I would get up and walk around that entire ward twice a day. And I knew every doctor's name, every nurse's name there, just so they knew that I was serious. I had this friend. We went into the hood when we were like 18, and he loved to play basketball. And we were like, we're 2 just like white boys, and we wanted to play ball. And I remember my buddy, they wouldn't let him play because they used to think he was like a cop. So he would run around the court, and he would yell at him, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. So I remember that when I was in the hospital, they let him play. So I remember that in the hospital. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get up, and I'm going to run around this ward, this ICU unit, at least twice a day to let everybody know that I'm still here and that I need a heart transplant. I don't know if that played into it, but I think the real reason why I was so fortunate and so lucky is because I had a history of good habits, and I had a great support team. And I was young. I was 45 years old. That must have had something to do with it. So I was listed, technically I was listed on June 14th, and I had a heart transplant on July 13th. So,
Wow.
so I was only listed a month, but I, on early July, they had said, that I had gotten to the point, I had 6 or 7 surgeries to keep me alive. And at one time I had flatlined out. They had read me my rights. I went through so much when I was in there, and they said, hey, listen, we're going to have to do something different. We're going to have to put an internal LVAD in you. And then once we do that, that's going to take you off the list. And it pretty much extends my wait time until I'm healthy enough again to get a heart transplant and get relisted. And then you got to go through like a whole different process. So on July 7th, they had told me that they were going to bring me in. And, it was looking pretty bleak for me at that point. I was either going to die or I was going to have to go on this new machine. And on July 7th, they said, hey, we're going to just take a couple of days. Well, on July 7th, my donor had his situation had started. He had committed suicide on that day. So they had a feeling that there was going to be an opportunity for me to have a heart. So they didn't tell me that I was going to get a transplant, but at that point they changed what they were, the direction they were going to head into. So I was lucky, and I was right at the end, I believe, but I was at peace when I was there. So
it's such a powerful story. You was talking so one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago about how you think you got determined on whether you're going to get it or not made me think of a movie that I watched just like last week. And I'd not seen it before. It's an old movie, Seven Pounds, with Will Smith. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
No.
You should see it. It's interesting. I won't go through the whole movie, but a part of it is him determining. I don't want to give the movie away, but part of it is him evaluating people's their right to live. They all have something going on. One of them is a heart. One of them needs a heart transplant, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And that plays a key role in the movie. Derek, have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, take a look at it if you can. But my
But
point
I think
is
7 pounds is like what the body weighs with all the water and stuff out of it. Is that right?
I don't. Yeah, it might. But
I think I've seen it actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, but there's a part of it where he is talking to these people and trying to find out if they're good, if they're good people, and if they would live their lives as good people. And maybe that's something that they saw in you, CJ, as someone who is going to be a good person and live a good life. I never thought of that. I've never been a part of anything like that, obviously. Hope never have to be. But it was interesting. I thought it was kind of a weird movie. Now that I think about it, maybe that is something that they do. They look at these recipients and, the long-term benefit of what comes from it. I don't know.
I think, for a lot of these hospitals, and I don't want to be philosophical, but a lot of these hospitals, their determination on who they're going to save and part of the determination on how they're funded is their ability to have success in what they're doing. So I think they look at each person and they say, okay, this guy right here is going to be somebody that's going to survive and has a better opportunity to live and to survive from a transplant. I think that probably has more to do with it than anything, but I think we all like to give ourselves a little more credit than we actually deserve. So sometimes I say to myself, they gave me a heart transplant because they like me, but it probably had nothing to do with it. They just looked at me as like, that guy's a good investment. That guy's going to get us funded because he's going to be a survivor, you know?
Exactly.
And let me tell you something, honest to God, I'm a guy who talks to everybody. I mean, you asked Eric, we're in a meeting. I get up after the meeting. Anybody that's there, I give them a pen. I tell them my story. I say, hey, my name is C.J. And the same thing when I go to clinic and stuff at the hospital, I talk to everybody there. And I, honest to God, have the greatest heart. I had no rejection post-transplant. I feel like so healthy right now. I golf a lot. You know, I golf better than when I, pre-transplant. I have so much energy. I mean, I was technically sick from the time I was, a little kid until I was 45 years old. So this is the first time I've actually had a healthy heart, probably my entire life. So I just feel like that.
So you're saying that this was hereditary, or was it something you had?
So I was diagnosed at 28 with a bicuspid aortic valve cardiomyopathy, which is an enlargement of the heart. There was a delay on replacing my heart valve. Just it wasn't an immediate need, but when I was 39 years old, I had my first open heart surgery. I had a heart valve replacement. A year later, they did an echo. My doctor told me, doesn't look good, kid. You're going to eventually need to do something different. They talked about, artificial heart pumps with me. They talked about needing a heart transplant. And then, I said, I don't need none of that. And everything worked good. I mean, I didn't feel any symptom. I never felt a symptom in my life until March of 2020, and then, the doctor was right. Eventually I was going to need a heart transplant, and it turned out I did need one then, but those doctors gave me a death sentence. And the one thing that I learned is, there's some great doctors in this world, and I think they're amazing. But, if a doctor tells you that you're going to die, you got to go find yourself another doctor. I had a doctor that told me, there's nothing we're going to be able to do for you, and didn't recommend me anywhere. He just recommended me to go home and die. But,
that's scary. That's just plain scary. I mean, you're basically saying your life is going to extinguish it, quicker than you'd want it to. And there's nothing we can do.
Well, at that time you're going through it. You're like, please, life end.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done.
I'm sure.
The pain, just all of that stuff is just, it's just unbearable. Like I said, you go to some really dark places, but I'm so glad, I'm so thankful I went through all of that. I'm so really thankful, because I really got such a great perspective on life, and I'm so grateful for the life that I have. And, I never had a regret previous to having a heart transplant, and I don't have any regrets post heart transplant. That God gave me a defective heart, and I'm glad that I went through what I went through. And you know what? And I reflect back on it, and it really wasn't that hard. The doctors did all the work.
God bless them. So CJ, we talk a lot about on this podcast about purpose. What our purposes are. A lot of our guests range from so many different backgrounds, and so talk a little bit about what you saw as your purpose pre-surgery or pre-transplant, and then how you look at it now. I know obviously you're more involved now, and you feel like you need to donate, but kind of talk about a little bigger picture of what you saw yourself doing pre-transplant and what you're doing now.
Well, I think you're a father, right? You have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids.
Yeah. So, I was always a coach and a dad, and those, when you're in that element, I mean, that's all that's all you do. You're a dad, you work, you try to create and leave a legacy for your children. And your legacy mainly is that you want to leave as a legacy of value. You want to leave them a nice inheritance, or you want to leave them a nice house, or you want to leave them something, you want to leave them some gold. But I think after going through something like that, and then coming through it and not believing that you're actually going to come through it, and fully convinced that your life was at the end, you learn that your legacy is so much more, and your legacy is about how people feel about you. The one thing that you learn when you're going through all that is that people generally, or some people genuinely, really love you. I mean, the people that came out to support me was just, I mean, it makes you almost emotional thinking about it. And you make every deal you can with God when you're sitting in that room. And one of the deals with God is that I was going to, work my butt off to help people if I got through it. And, that's what I do. If I see an opportunity to help somebody, I want to help them, and we have a great community here. I mean, my neighbors lined up on the street for me when I pulled up after going through the heart transplant. Everybody had signs in the yards, and I don't want to let those people down. If they need something, I want to help them. So that's basically it. And I love people. I really do. I love people. And there's this kid that's in town here. His name is Mike Colburn, and this might sound crazy to you, but you're in the hospital, man. And what do you think about? Well, I mean, what would you think about if you were in the hospital, about your house? I thought about my lawn, because I mow my damn lawn, right? So you're in the hospital, you're looking at your Nest camera and you're looking at your grass growing. But this kid in town, his name is Mike Colburn. This guy come to my house every Thursday, mowed my lawn. If I had a doctor that was coming in between 3 and 4 on a Thursday, I'd be like, hey man, give me a couple minutes, man. And I would just watch him mow my lawn, man. I'd sit there for that half an hour while he's mowing my lawn and just watch it. And that brought me so much joy. And that guy gives so much to our community, and I give a tenth of what that kid does. And he's amazing. And he's really, I got out of the hospital and that guy took me by the hand and said, come on, man, we're going to do some things around here. And we had, and he just brings me along for the ride. Between you guys and me, I don't know, I hope no one else hears this. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I bitch at him all the time. I'm like, why are we doing this for? Come on, man, I got stuff to do, And, but he brings me along and makes me do all this stuff. So I can't take too much credit. I got to give all the credit to him,
Well, Michael is, I see him around town, and he's unbelievable too. Michael Corrin is an awesome guy. He's awesome. He does a lot. You and I see both these working together. I was going through some of your Facebook, and I see you're both up in Plastow, New Hampshire, in front of one of the grocery stores with the Salvation Army.
Right.
That's what ringing for asking for donations. And I see guys at the Lions Club.
Yeah.
You both do an awesome job, and and I can see. I remember when I first we were talking about it, and you had mentioned who you were before, the transplant, and and who you are now. And I found it to be, and I think when people see that, you're like, when that day comes where you're like, oh, wait a second, I may not be on this earth much longer. What I wouldn't give to, to say, hey, you know what, I want to extend it. I want to live. And you change who you are. And I know you've mentioned that many times, how you change who you are.
Oh yeah. Instead of chasing the dollar, I mean, it's, you really get a different perspective, No, I'm, hustling for dollars my entire life, since I was a punk kid, you know, I had the, you have that moment, man. I mean, if I was my uncle or my grandfather, or, I'd be dead, I mean, they didn't have the technology to do what they did for me when they were, when they were men, when they were, they didn't have that technology. They didn't. The great thing about being in Boston or being, in the hospitals in Boston is they have like the greatest, newest technology. The heart machine that they had me on that kept me alive long enough to get a heart transplant was like, I was like the first guy on it. It was like the newest, greatest thing. And you get in Boston the newest, greatest thing because you got the technology, you got the, all that great stuff, So anyway, but
it's probably some 60-year-old from MIT that built it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, CJ, to build off of that, I mean, I think you're obviously very fortunate that you were in the state of Massachusetts where we have one of the best healthcare and hospitals in the country,
right?
Where you can get that top-notch service that can keep you alive, and when you need to do the surgery, you were in the best place to have that surgery.
Oh yeah. Oh,
CJ, who was the cardiologist? Did you have a local cardiologist that you would like to give a shout out to? Or more than one, obviously. I'm sure you had a team.
So I have a team. I have a transplant team at Tufts Medical Center, and that's where I was. The cardiologist leading up to me needing a heart transplant, great guy, but he gave me a death sentence. He told me to go home and die. Basically. I mean, so I don't want to give anybody a shout out.
Don't give that one a shout out.
Yeah, I'll give the heart transplant team at Tufts Medical Center a huge shout out. I mean, this team came in and sometimes they told me things that sucked and I didn't like it, but I knew that I had to suck it up and do exactly what they said to do, because these are the people that make the decision on, whether or not I was going to get a heart transplant. And, I would, and I just want to say, a good thing about Anna Jake's hospital, I know a lot of people may have opinions on them, but I tell you what, I went into that hospital, and they were smart enough to know that I didn't belong there, and they sent me to Tufts right away. But Tufts Medical Center is the greatest hospital in the world.
I think you show the importance. I think you show the importance of getting second opinions as well.
Yeah,
I mean, really, right? Any type of, sometimes they'll ask you have surgery that you don't necessarily need. There's other ways you could have had, to get around the situation or to solve the issue. Not always cutting someone open is always a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a surgery that,
you seem like you had quite a bit of surgeries. I didn't realize the amount.
I've had a tremendous amount of surgery. However, I've never had a surgery that I probably don't think I needed,
No, I understood. But I'm talking about in the sense of,
yes,
your knee, you hurt your knee. Someone's saying, well, you know what? The only way to fix your knee is I got to cut you open. Well,
right.
Is there rehab? Is there other ways I can do that? I think it works both ways is what I was trying to get at.
Right.
Getting a second opinion by selling someone saying, listen, you're going to die. Well, wait a second. Yeah. That doesn't sit well with me. I'm not going to, I'm going to get a second opinion. And then vice versa, getting an opinion where people say, yeah, I'll just cut you open. That's where we're going to fix it. Well, wait a second. Is there other ways to do that? That's what I meant I was getting.
It was bizarre because you believe it. I had to have somebody from the outside say, hey man, why do you listen? What is wrong? Listen, this is where you need to go. I had a guy, he literally made my doctor's appointment for me. This is a tremendously successful human being too, who probably could have done anything else he wanted in life.
And this is the person we probably give the shout out to.
Yeah, that's Bill Curry, which I said, and Bill Curry is, one of the owners of the Lionwall Auto Group, BMW, Peabody, and that guy saved my life, man. And he told me, he said, you owe me a lobster salad sandwich, man. The guy saved my life,
Lobster. There's a lot of lobster salad sandwiches being owed.
That guy was a great guy. He's a great guy. He just didn't allow me to. He didn't allow me to die. He made the doctor's appointment for me, and he would have came and picked me up and drove me there. And I'm so glad he did, because you
That's
go
awesome.
into
That's awesome. You got a lot of support staff, a lot of support around you, a lot of support. That's what you needed at the time.
Yes. So,
how long did the surgery last?
So it's interesting how that all works. So a donor becomes available, and a donor can save 8 lives with their organs. You got 2 lungs, you got 2 kidneys, you got a heart, you got a pancreas, you've got a liver that can be separated, and a liver regenerates itself. My donor happened to save 5 people. He gave somebody his left kidney, gave somebody his right kidney. He gave me he gave his lungs to somebody, he gave his liver to somebody, he gave me his heart. There was 39,000 transplants the year that I had my heart transplant, and that was in 2020. There's 22 people that actually die each day that are waiting on organ transplants.
Wow.
There's currently like 107,000 people that are listed waiting on organ transplants. The largest number of people are waiting on kidney transplants. Fortunately for people waiting in kidney transplants, the technology is so between dialysis and so forth, they can live a long time waiting for a kidney transplant. Not a quality of life that I would want to go through, or I would not want anybody to have to deal with. But I went through all these numbers, and I kind of lost track of what we were talking about.
So how long did the surgery last?
So what happens?
I was following. That's crazy.
Yeah. So what happens is a donor becomes available. Each doctor that is going to perform whatever transplant it is, liver, kidney, heart, lung, they actually, the surgeon, they actually go to the human cadaver or donor, and they actually harvest the organs, and they bring the organs back to the recipient, and they actually put that organ into the recipient. So my doctor, so I was put under at 1:30 in the afternoon on July 12th, 2020. They said to me, they said, hey, listen, we're going to put you under. You might wake up and not have an organ transplant. We have 1 a year that it happens. So you get put under, you wake up, and they say, hey, the heart didn't work. So what happens is the doctor goes to the donor, investigates, checks the heart, determines that it's good, healthy, ready to go. They take the heart, they take it out of the body, they bring it to you, and they have to wait until the other organs are harvested. They wait till the kidneys are done. They wait till the lungs are done, because the heart, keeps the blood flowing. They can't, that's got to be the last organ that goes. So by the time that they got back to Boston with my heart, and they had left at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, was 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. The transplant was done at 2:30 in the morning on July 13th, 2020. So it was 13 hours that I was technically under. So that was 13 hours of being under. I'm not sure exactly how long the surgery was, but if they got back at 9:30, that gives you 2, 4, 5, 6 hours.
I mean, aren't you technically dead when they pull your heart to do the transplant? They pull out, aren't you like?
Yeah, I mean they have you on a heart lung machine, which
Okay.
is your heart, your lungs. But you know, I had died between. So I had different heart pumps that they had put in me to sort of keep me. You know, they had each heart pump expires in time. So I had one which was one that expired within like a few days. So they put me under. I ended up flatlining. Like I said, you know, my Catholic priest came in and he read me my last rites. And it took me, I was out for, you know, quite some time, a week or so. And I finally, you know, they had me incubated. They had me come back and they're like, oh, do you know what happened to you? And I'm like, no. They're like, oh, you were dead, you know? And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I just couldn't even just imagine it. But
I can't fathom that. I can't even think of it. It makes
My
me sick.
Catholic
It
priest
makes me
came
sick just thinking about it.
my Catholic priest came in and says, hey, hey, we read you your last rites and you know, and I mean, that was a tremendous experience too, just having the Catholic priest, building a relationship with him and just having him pray for me each day. And I had a prayer card from St. Jude and I would say the prayer every day. And it was just a very, religious moment for me. It was some heavy duty stuff. They always, like, people say, hey, you see the white light or,
yeah, that's my next question.
Yeah.
You were dead.
Well, so the bizarre thing is I don't know about all that stuff, but I had some kind of visual hallucination that was so real. And I don't know if it was heaven or not heaven, but the bizarre thing is I mean, when you think about the best time of your life, I mean, what age do you think about it as? Like me, it was like I was 6 years old, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm in my dad's, 1977 Gremlin, and we're driving to a breakfast place to have breakfast, and that's what I saw when I was in that place. That was the vision I had, and having, sausage, gravy, and eggs, I mean, that was what I saw.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, they probably had me all juiced up on all kinds of drugs. So it was probably the drugs that gave me the vision, but that's what I saw, and I think about it I think about it in that sense, like, if heaven was a place, like, is that the place that it would be? I'm 6 years old, innocent, happy, joyful.
Yeah.
CJ, I can tell you Derek's place. Derek's happy place. Unfortunately, you know what it is? It's 4th of July. It's 4th of July. He has his flip-flops on, and he's doing that long walk to the beach.
Yeah.
That's his place. Just walking to the beach. 4th of July around noon or so.
It's on a loop.
It's a good 95 degrees.
Yeah, it's on a loop and going around in circles.
He's doing that walk to the beach.
Well, CJ, I may say right now, if that's what that's what happens when we die, and yours is in a vehicle with your father, and mine's on the beach, and listen, I guess I'll be happy. When it does happen, I will be a content individual walking back and forth to the beach like that.
Now, if it's the other side, it's today outside.
Yeah, I won't be happy.
Well, what's your idea of heaven? Yeah.
You know what it's funny that you said, I was thinking that those teenage years, man, when you really didn't have any worries, like my daughter's age right now, she's all going crazy because one of her friends broke up with the boyfriend and the boyfriend likes her. Now, like those ages like that 12, 13, my son's now same age, you're just kind of becoming aware of what life is. And, that to me is that fun age.
I like CJ's idea of 6 years old, getting up on Saturday, watching my cartoons with the Polar cereal.
Yeah, no responsibilities whatsoever. I could take a nap right afterwards and no one's going to care. Like, where are you? No one get in touch with me because there's no cell phones back in that time period.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect time. I could eat the cereal, not have to worry about the sugar that's in it.
Right.
13
just seems so stressful.
Yeah, it does. It's just too much for me to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? You know, mine is probably my wife and I, the last couple of years, we've gone to 4th of July, we've gone to Provincetown. We have this beautiful place that overlooks the Provincetown Bay. We took a picture of it, we framed it, put it in our bathroom. That, to me, having that tranquility, that's the word I'm looking for, that tranquility. But I'll tell you, CJ, what an unbelievable story. And I hope people that are listening to this take, at the very least, like I feel like I'm doing, is to feel like, hey, you know, you're never out of the game. You know, you really got to keep searching, keep doing your due diligence, keep asking questions. If you don't like what you're hearing, find someone, not to wait to tell someone you want to hear, but, you know, go through and check all the boxes. You know, and again, we talk about that all the time on this podcast about staying motivated. And man, I say, CJ, we've never met before, but just hearing your story, and I'm visualizing it as you're going through. And my dad had heart surgery before the pandemic, and he had a double or triple bypass. And I just remember seeing him there and how helpless he was before the surgery, and how blessed and lucky we were. He didn't have, you know, obviously we didn't have to go through these things like you had to, but still, it's just, life is fragile. You know, we've learned that. I've learned that go through the pandemic. I feel like probably we've all known people that we have lost over the last couple of years, whether it's to the pandemic or not. But seriously, I mean, hearing your story motivates me personally. I feel like sharing the story with my kids, and hopefully, before we started recording, it sounds like you're going to start maybe getting out in the public more. Do it, CJ. I think your story needs to be told. I think hopefully we'll start with it here on our podcast. But really, it is motivating, and I'm going to add certainly you to my prayer list, and the young gentleman who helped save your life. And there's no reason to say his name, but I'm going to add him and his family as well. It's such an inspiring story to hear, CJ, where you're at and what you've been through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, developing a kinship with the family, but you also have developed a kinship with the donor who you now have living inside you. I mean, that's got to be very, very powerful.
It is, you know, I'm connected with his family on Facebook. I see his children who are
children too, huh?
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I know him, but you know, I don't know him. And I, you know, you have a certain amount of guilt, you know, you don't want to, like, I put on some weight, the medicine puts some weight on you, you know, and I feel like when I see his family, I'm like chubby, and I'm saying to myself, geez, you know, I feel guilty that, you know, that I'm not necessarily the best steward for who their son's heart went to, but, you know, I think they appreciate me, you know, and you always have a responsibility to be the best person you can be for who he was, you know, and I always try to remember that, you know. Sometimes I say stupid stuff. We all say stupid stuff, but I always think, you know, I got a responsibility, not only to my family, but I have a responsibility to him. And, you know, and I don't know, you know, how things work in this world, you know, but I do have a certain feeling that, you know, that he might have had the opportunity to choose me in his own way, you know?
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, I think you would have, CJ.
You know, and
inspirational person.
Well, it shows the importance as well for being an organ donor.
Yes.
You know, without organ donors, you may not be around here.
Yeah. When we work on marketing this episode, we'll have to get some of those links and put them out on some of the cover art that we do.
Yeah, and I'll share those with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. You know, if any way to donate, you can tell us at the end of this podcast how you donate, and anything we want, anything you want to promote, we definitely want to do. And the only other question I wanted to ask is, and it's kind of pertinent, is how long was your recovery time? I mean, how long before you were back up, and was it very intense?
So the record for post transplant discharge from the hospital was 10 days. I was 11 days post-transplant. I was 1 day off from the record, but I just wanted to get the hell out of there, to be honest with you. But I was
The Guinness Book of Record.
Yeah, but I missed the record. But so I get home on 11 days post-transplant, and I could barely, I get out of my car. I have to say a speech to all the people that were there, and I can barely make it up the little hill in my house to get into my house and get up the stairs. It was just very difficult. But in December, the first week of December, I drove to Florida. So that was, 4 months post-transplant. And then by May, in May of 2021, I golfed 18 holes, and that day I felt like I was recovered. So it was really 10 months before I felt like it was 10 months before I could golf 18 holes. But
I remember I met you around that
9
time.
holes the week before and carried my son's bag while he golfed too. So that was it.
Yeah.
So 10 months.
Yeah, I remember meeting you. We did the beach cleanup that day in May, and I remember we were discussing that, and I didn't realize how soon you were recovering from a heart transplant. So
yeah, you get up and you get up and you fight. It was I hated hearing people's stories, and I hated to accept the fact that I hated to accept the fact that I was going to struggle with life. And I have my company that I work for that they kept me involved. Every sales meeting that we had, I was on the Zoom with them. And if I miss one, my boss gave me shit. Like, hey, where are you? You need to be in this meeting. Like, that shit was important. I mean, I didn't mean to swear, but that stuff was important. That stuff was important. He knew that stuff was important. My boss, Jim Lamb, greatest guy in the world. He knew that stuff was important to keep me engaged. And that really propelled me to go hard. I mean, most of the people I talked to, it was years, 2 years. Most of them never returned to work. I mean, I had the opportunity. My doctor said, you don't have to go back to work. Why would you go back to work? And I said, because I need to have that, I need to have that purpose. And part of the reason, that I'm on a board with you now is because I took a year off from work and I needed something to do. So
you need a purpose. You need a purpose.
Good for you, man. Good for you. That is awesome. Such an awesome
definitely.
story.
Yeah, no, definitely. So CJ, what definitely give us a shout out if you want to promote. I mean, essentially, how about donating, about organ donors, whatever you want to talk about, give it to us. This will be on there. We'll add it to our links to the spot to our when we upload this your episode. Yep. So definitely share.
Yeah, I'll give you guys the links, but I mean, it's really, to register to be an organ donor, it's real easy. If you're a kid, which I would recommend any new kid that is getting the license, sign up. There's so many stigmas on whether or not that they work hard enough on somebody that is a donor. But technically they care for you even better when you're in a bad state and in a state where you have the potential to be an organ donor. Just want every kid just to, as you get your license, you have the opportunity to be an organ donor, just sign up to be an organ donor. It's real easy. When you're in when somebody's in a bad situation, they look at your license, they make a determination that you're an organ donor, and, they care for you very well. And you have the opportunity to extend somebody's life, like myself. There's a guy that lives on Salisbury Beach right now that has been waiting on a heart transplant. And, I love the guy dearly. he was listed for a heart transplant before I was listed for a heart transplant, and before I even knew I needed a heart transplant. And I talked to the guy, and I went in with excitement, and I'm telling them about my experience and how grateful I am and when I'm with you. And the guy looks at me and goes, my doctor told me that I'm never going to get a heart transplant. And I just, at that point, I said to myself, geez, that's just a horrible, horrible feeling, and I love the guy dearly. Great guy. He's, unfortunately going to die needing a heart transplant. Now, as you guys know, there's two major news stories about heart transplant that's been in the news the last month. One is that they transplanted a pig heart into a human donor, which is kind of cool. It's somebody that didn't qualify for a heart transplant, which is quite interesting, and the guy's still alive. And the second story is the guy who was unlisted for a heart transplant because he refused to get the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And, part of, being a good candidate for a transplant is the fact that you listen to your doctor. And if your doctor tells you should be vaccinated, you should probably get vaccinated, especially if it's going to mean your life, right?
So it's almost like an alcoholic, right? You can get a liver transplant. You can't drink.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the doctor says you can't drink, then you're not a good candidate. Why are you going to give a good liver to someone,
right,
and they're going to abuse it? Then you've wasted.
That is a major thing. And hearts, the same thing, you have part of, a heart transplant, and especially a heart transplant, is you got to be healthy enough to receive it. If you got a failing kidney and a failing liver and a failing heart, they're essentially not going to, waste something as valuable as a heart on somebody that, is probably not going to survive the surgery. It's got to go to the next in line. But boy, what a hard decision that would be to make, huh?
Yeah.
Decision.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Who do you choose?
Yeah. I hear you. Now, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, just to talk about your experience,
you can reach out to me. One other thing, registerme.org will allow you to register to be an organ donor, become an organ donor. The oldest living organ donor, 93 years old, liver, was a liver donor. Okay, so you're never too old to be an organ donor.
Good to know.
That's interesting.
The oldest actual organ donor was 103, donated their eyes. So It's not a critical organ, but it is still an organ. But you can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. My name is C.J. Fitzwater, and I'm C.J. Fitzwater, Facebook.CJ Fitzwater, and my email address is cfitzwater@ymail.com. But the best thing is to find me on Facebook and like me, and you can be annoyed by my post because I'm.
No, I think you'd be a great person to tell stories to people who think that life is something they shouldn't be or they don't take it seriously, or they don't value it. And you can go around and tell people that how it's changed your life, help someone who's going through the same thing, and help them, guide them through the process. So you have a lot to offer. Very inspirational.
Yeah,
I have a good friend of mine that I talk to daily. I met him. Somebody said, "Hey, listen, I got a friend that's going through, needs a heart transplant. Call him up." I called him up. I encouraged him through the whole thing. He ended up getting a heart transplant. We've become good friends. Never met in person, but we've communicated and talked a ton on the phone. We talk a lot. I love that. I love that ability to, minister to people. I'm not a clergy guy or anything, but I minister. I swear I got a bad mouth, and I sort of consider myself a Renaissance man, so we can talk about all kinds of stuff, but I minister to them in my own way,
Anything else to
for
man,
donating
thank you
or
guys. Thank you guys for having me on your podcast. I think you guys do a terrific job. I told you guys before, I like your whole vibe. You got like the whole sort of nerd slash hipster cool vibe thing going on. Not that you're nerds, but you guys nerd out.
You just described Brett with every one of them.
Yeah.
That's my brother. He's not on. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys got a real good balance. I
You
think
just
you guys
described Derek too.
I'm telling you, CJ. I mean, from start to finish, just listening to your story, it's just been so. It's just like it's not it hits home, but it's like wow, I can't believe this, and you're caught into your story, and it's just like following step by step. It had me from start to finish, and it's a story about life and health, and being alive, and what you went through, and how you managed to get through it, and having purpose, like Brian said. I think it's fantastic, and share. You're going to give us the links. We'll share them on our platform, so people can go to them if they have any questions, or they want to donate, anything like that. But CJ, I really appreciate you coming on.
I just want to say one more thing. Thank you for having me on. And I always say this to people: always make plans, because if you got plans, you can't die. So I always had plans when I was in the hospital.
I love it, man. CJ, it was so awesome having you on. We so
CJ. Yeah, CJ, stay around. Brian's gonna close it out for us, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So first, thank you again, CJ. Your story is hopefully will be inspiring to all our listeners. I always do the rundown on how we're doing with our performance. Over 3,500 downloads. I was screwing up on some of my
it was like 35, 57,
3,500, something like that. So and we're gonna have more inspiring stories like CJ. We're gonna have some more familiar guests be coming back in season 2. Brett is like all of us. Brett's busy, but we're gonna get these out and edited. Check out our YouTube content, Instagram. We're on every single social platform. Not every single one, because it's probably 1,000. So we're on like 4 of them. So we appreciate it. Keep listening and liking and connecting. Please send us any guest ideas. We're open to everyone. Stories like CJ, to me, I think need to be told. So we appreciate it. Have a great night.